Hey guys, keep listening, and we're going to talk to you about some ways that you can use breath to deal with all of the craziness going on in the world right now. Welcome to another episode of the CarryTrainer Higherline podcast. Hey guys, welcome, or gals, or whatever in this day and age, to another episode of the Higherline podcast. We've got our friend, the master of breath, Brian MacKenzie, on, and I want to talk. I got a couple things that I wrote down I want to talk about. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We just had a measuring contest of who's got more megabytes per second.
Yeah, you instantly threw out 150 at me, and I said, "Well, let me just test mine," and mine came out at 500.
And I'm like, what's new with you from the last time we had you on? The COVID's in full effect. You're working on your online content.
Turned our business completely around. Parts of what's going. I mean, like, having to shift your business and make it all online. Like, I thought it was going to be a bigger problem. Like, we were really struggling. Like, when it first started, like right before all this happened, we were kind of struggling just because we were like, what do we do? Where do we go? Like, and I have always wanted to be able to be as independent of having to travel as possible. So that just, we poured gasoline on that thing with everything going on. And, I've lived this lifestyle for quite some time. Other than not being able to travel, although my travel starts again this month. So okay. I'll be, I'm headed down to where am I headed? Yeah. Orange County. So I'm driving down there. And then, I'll be in Nashville in July, and then I'll be back out there with you in November.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, we might as well talk about that. You're coming to the next S12 event. You're going to lend your expertise. We haven't fully solidified all of that, but what kind of stuff will people that attend to S12, what will they get from Brian that weekend?
So we've spent some time within law enforcement and, tactical community with what we've done in the past, and we've been able to mold a lot of what we've been doing in the last 7 years to that type of world. And I think this presents a unique opportunity. And I got to do that with you a little bit at the last course that I got to do with you. Yeah. But it really opened my eyes up, and I got to push Rob, who leads our education, on this stuff. And he's worked extensively in the tactical community as he lives in Virginia Beach. So he has a large cohort of special operations guys that come in and out of his work. And so our goal is to teach people how to actually control more of their autonomic nervous system. Most of us today don't have the tools or the means for understanding how to control our emotions. And at the heart of all intelligence is emotional control. It's an actual trainable thing. What is not trainable is your IQ. So your IQ.
So basically, really, you're saying, just let me jump in here. Yeah. The software can be rebooted and refined, but the CPU, you get what you get. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the hardware, your DNA and proteins that work within that DNA structure are pretty fixed, right? But that doesn't mean you need to exploit the stuff genetically deformed within your DNA, say cancer, right? That doesn't mean you need to express those genes. But when we talk about the software is what am I inputting into my system? Yeah. Am I constantly stressed out? Do I know how to react in a high stress situation? And for a lot of your community, that's why they come to your courses, and that's why they do what they do, so they can get training, so they're actually responding and not reacting in a manner that is, I mean, dude, one of the most eye-opening experiences I ever had was at your course when we were lined up 20 deep, and you were like, I'm going to call out two numbers. When I call out those two numbers, the first number means
shots to the head. Second one to the second number is shots to the body. If I were to call out this number and that number, that is what this means to the head, to the body. But if I don't blow the whistle, you do not shoot. And you went over that 3 times. If I do not blow the whistle, you do not shoot. And I was listening. And lo and behold, you called out a number, 2 numbers, and did not blow the whistle. And it took one person for most of that line. I think there might have been 3 of us that didn't shoot, to follow the person who shot.
Mm-hmm.
And you made a perfect example of what happens when people aren't listening or in it.
Yeah.
And that's what my work's about, is teaching people why breath control is so important. We have access to something that instantly changes our autonomic arousal, meaning we can take this dial of high sympathetic, high survival activity and go and move it over to calmer, less reactive, more responsive in nature. And it just takes a little bit of training to understand how to use it. And that was what I got to talk about with your crowd. And that's what we're going to do at the S12. And this is what I do, is I teach people about this, with whether it's in being a better athlete, being a better corporate, mogul, or being better law enforcement or fire,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, how do I actually maintain, like, not blowing through my SCBA in a fire? Like, our fire season's about to start here. And it is critically important for these guys to understand that when they go into these hot, nasty environments, because if they blow through that oxygen, it's over, man.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you do this with trauma docs and other people as well.
I have, yes.
We've talked about this a few times with you, but the Reader's Digest, autonomic versus sympathetic.
Yeah. Our sympathetic nervous system is designed for our on switch. I don't want people to think that it's bad. It's the reason you're alive, right? You wake up in the morning because your sympathetic drive is picking up, right? And cortisol gets released, and this all starts to take place. So sympathetic, our inhale is sympathetic, right? That's sympathetic. That means I'm turning on. All right. And this is our fight, flight, freeze response, is what everybody's really used to with that. Although it doesn't necessarily mean we're always in that state with it. It just moves us. The higher we get up on that dial, the more we're going to go to a default system that is very high survival, meaning I am either going to react in a fight, I am going to run, or I am going to freeze. In modern times, here's what that means. I have to be right. My opinion is the only opinion. That is fight. Flight is dissociative. I ghost. I just leave and shut down, right?
I'm just gonna block all these people and
I'm just gonna ignore.
phone.
I'm just gonna ignore all of this, right? And there's a time and a place to not respond to things, right? But if that's my behavior, that is what that is. And then freeze is I'm sheep. I just buy into what everybody's saying, and I don't have any critical thinking or anything to add to the situation. I shut down my opinion because I'm like, oh no, So that's the modern.
I don't want to look like I'm an idiot if I say the wrong thing, or I don't want people to judge me.
Correct. And so these are this is kind of where we've leaned towards, because we don't actually have to be in the wild, right? Where it is fight, flight, freeze. I'm in threat from because when the bear comes out, if I'm a hunter and a bear comes around the corner and I'm hunting elk and I'm on a bow, I'm in a big, big problem. Right. Yeah. We all know what that means. More than likely most people watching this. And this is, why we'll use the term everybody's equal in front of the bear, because everybody's equal. There is no discrimination with the bear, right? In a survival situation. From the parasympathetic side, we look at that as the rest, digest, reproduce, or recover. And this is where you can expect, this is where most of our functioning should really be towards. is we have to lean more towards this parasympathetic process, because this is also where creativity happens, right? This is where very high level decision making happens. This is where that executive function really gets to play out. Unfortunately, we spin that out quite a bit and overthink everything, and so we get caught up in, I'm right, I have an opinion that can't be wrong, and all of the like, there's just a lot of things that can intertwine into our executive thinking that can create very emotional responses that set us off into high sympathetic activity. The poor end of parasympathetic is something like depression, right? So that's a constant thing where I'm constantly leaning into this parasympathetic activity. This is people who actually ghost, right? Who actually are dissociative in that sympathetic state. That's their MO when they get really stressed out, is to go to sleep and or shut down from this process, right? They can't handle dealing with it. I'm not trying to diagnose or go into that. These are just the kind of blanket or basic terms or things that happen within this. But to think of the parasympathetic system is, if I am somebody who deals with gut issues, meaning I don't poop real well, I don't digest things real well, my digestive system has problems, you can bet you're stressed. You're leaning more towards sympathetic, right? Because your gut is directly tied into, this is your enteric nervous system, but it's directly tied into the peripheral nervous system, which is a part of the autonomic response to things. All right. So if I don't actually learn how to unwind, my gut doesn't usually work real well. And that can have a lot of things leaning into it, meaning my gut's stressed. And that could be a byproduct of the things I eat or the lifestyle I'm leading, right? So if I'm in a high stress situation or a high stress job, like most of the people that you work with, I have to learn how to regulate my nervous system really well. And that's what we've actually seen with high level or elite operators, right? When I see a guy from Delta or Team 6, who goes into a study that we're looking at, something that we've seen, and we look at autonomic arousal, it's not that people like this don't respond to sympathetic activity, it's how quickly they regulate. So meaning we all go into a situation, right? Let's just call it a VR, virtual reality. And let's just say we put up a dog attacking us, right? Or somebody attacking us. Everybody responds to somebody just entered the room. I become sympathetic. The problem is that a lot of us hover and stay up in this sympathetic activity where the person who's trained comes automatically down. They know how to regulate and respond to, they see it, they know what they see, and then they respond accordingly. That is autonomic arousal. That is an ability to work within our autonomic nervous system. There's two ways that we have to control that, and that is through our breath or through our visual system. And visual system means I've got to take my eyes you've got to really train it. It's more difficult, right? Like, so if I've got a perp or I've got somebody coming at me or I got a bear coming at me, right? I've got to look beyond that bear in order to get my visual system to go peripheral. That's a very hard thing to do, where if I just shut my mouth, I now am controlling that situation from an arousal standpoint. It doesn't mean I'm going to make the best decision. That means we learn to train it. So when I go into a firing situation and Mickey's telling me, when I blow the whistle is when you shoot, and you say it 3 times. If I'm off in la la land, or if I'm not engaged in something, this is where it becomes, I know what to do when I'm in situations like interviews. Like, this is my 3rd one today, right? So I have to learn when it's not when I'm not talking, because I'm setting myself off in more of a sympathetic place right now, because I am engaging, I am talking, I am controlling my physiology right now to move more towards that sympathetic dial. I'm getting heightened, that when I shut up, I shut my mouth and my breathing calms down so that I listen.
So shut your mouth and listen if you're talking too much and you need to calm down.
Yeah, and you should become aware of, if you're always talking, you're going to be somebody who's leaning more sympathetic which
Makes
means
sense.
it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to unwind, which also leans into, this is our type A'ers who, when I talk all day, then I need to go and work out really, really, really hard at the end of the day. So what did we do? We just went from high sympathetic activity to high sympathetic activity to high sympathetic activity to, I'm going to finish my day off with high sympathetic activity. Then I'm going to try and hack my sleeping. Our sleeping is nothing more than a recipient of what we did the other 16 hours of the day.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it's kind of entertaining for me to watch how many people try and hack their sleep and do all these sleep things to hack, but go around, hey, how's your day operate? Are you getting emotionally charged into a bunch of different stuff right now? Because, I mean, that's, the world's on fire right now, right?
So you're saying you can't just sleep away the problems that you pile on and physiologically throughout the day.
No.
So somebody that's like you or me that talks all day, an instructor, a teacher, somebody that's got to be in that keyed up position, you're saying perhaps hitting the gym real hard at the end of the day isn't the best thing. Maybe some meditative yoga, maybe.
Yeah, that, go for a walk, go for a long walk, right? Or
with
go
your
for a
mouth
hike.
shut.
Yeah, with your mouth shut. And the reason we say that is, if I shut my mouth, I automatically am engaging my parasympathetic nervous system.
Is it that simple? I know you have an
is.
answer for this, but I've watched, like, sometimes, like we did. So those of you listening that haven't heard Brian on the Higher Line before, we've done a couple. And then when he came out to our class in California last year, I filmed it, and we've got a video up on our YouTube channel. And there's some fairly intellectual people that debated on the comment section with what he's saying, but science has proved what he's saying is right. But it just seems so doggone simple. Like, wait, close my mouth and just meter my breath through my nose, and it'll help me relax.
Yeah, here's why. If I'm breathing through my mouth, I will naturally have a higher respiration rate, unless I'm actively trying to control my breathing. Okay? Which is perfectly fine. But nobody's doing that. Who's sitting around going, okay? They're not. I've watched,
Yeah.
I've observed, watched this a long time. When I turn over to nasal breathing, I automatically slow my respiration rate. What happens when I go to sleep? What happens to my respiration rate?
It goes slower, deeper.
Drops out. Instantly. You can watch your dog, you can watch your wife, you can watch your husband, you can watch your kids, you can watch whoever you want. Watch what happens when they go to sleep. The respiration rate drops. That is your parasympathetic nervous system going online fully, right? And this is you going to sleep, right? So the fact that I slow my respiration rate down is a byproduct of my exhale actually elongating to a large degree. And when we elongate our exhale, we shut down, we inhibit the sympathetic nervous system. There's actually, acetylcholine is released on the exhale for the heart to decelerate on an exhale.
So you exhale, a gland in your brain is secreting acetylcholine.
The system itself, acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter, neuromodulator.
Okay.
Right. So
okay.
It's actually
pretty big words for a freaking skateboard punk.
Well, I mean, I got interested in this stuff, man. So I had to go down the rabbit hole with it and really understand it. But, you know, acetylcholine also plays a role in sympathetic nervous system activity for smooth muscle, right? It just so happens, though, that it's playing its role with the heart becomes in the exhale and decelerating the heart. So the heart rate starts to drop out. This is why if we put on a pulse oximeter or a heart rate monitor, and I said to everybody, slow your heart rate down. Almost every person, every time I've ever done this, I let them do it for a minute. I go, okay, so what did you do? I said, well, I slowed my breathing down. Yeah. Why would you do that? It's innate. We understand it, but unfortunately, part of our problem is we've lost touch to something that was so very obvious to people who were attached to being in the wild.
Mm-hmm.
When you go look at, like, I'm a big, like, I really love the history of the frontier, post-Civil War, how the Native American culture, and how it, like, the genocide of the Native Americans, how it happened, why it happened. It wasn't like it was deliberate genocide, but it was genocide. And what happened, like, why did these people not want to become civilized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why, when we go look at other indigenous cultures, what is unique to them as well? And one of those unique traits is how connected they were to nature, but what was going on. And I don't know that there is a culture of indigenous culture that really talks as much as current civilized culture does. And they created words for things that had a lot of meaning to them, right? And meaning, I'm alluding to the fact that these people hunted, slept, and rarely opened their mouths. They did these things because they understood what would happen when they actually did open their mouths. And we're so removed from that we find it an asinine thing for me to even bring that up. It can't be that simple. And it's not that it's that simple. It's that there is something so simple to this that I'm glued to it in a way because my nervous system has completely changed in 7 years from what I was to what I am. And this is the thing, because I've trained for a very long time. I've taken care of myself for a long time. I've considered myself fairly connected to nature. This is why I live where I live. It's what I do. It's, all of this, but this has been the thing that has impacted me and the people I've worked with the most.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting concept because we, especially in this modern world, we keep looking for more complex solutions. Like nobody wants to take something simple. For example, like what did our grandfathers do? And of course, that wasn't for everybody. They went and sat by a pond or a river and tossed a line in and smoked a pipe and contemplated. And
you got it. They meditated, dude.
Yeah.
They
went to the beach. Yeah. Yeah. Went for a walk in the woods. And now we have antidepressants. And I got a couple friends right now simultaneously going through some bad relationship stuff. And I'm with the one, and he's taking a medicine to ease his stomach. And it's a prescribed medicine because he's got freaking acid all built up. Then he's taking something to help him poop. Then he's taking something to help him sleep. Then he's taking something for his blood pressure. Then he's taking something else because these drugs do all these other things combined in his system. And I'm like looking at him, I'm like, damn, man, you're like a cocktail of stuff. And of course, what we're talking about, people with diagnosed conditions need medical intervention at times. But after the full day of getting himself all keyed up, then he goes and pops sleeping pills. And then wakes up feeling like shit because you're not sleeping very well. You just got drunk to fall asleep, basically. But we don't like the notion of having to, or that there could be something simple. But then part of this, the emotional equation of this is you have to face it too. Like you have to sit and look the thing in the eye, and nobody likes that part.
No.
I actually do.
Yeah. Well, you and I both do, but it took time to do that. It took a lot of time, right? Like, I mean, it's not like, oh, yeah, I just, one day woke up and wanted to start looking at all the painful shit that I had, wrapped myself in.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's a great book out there called, I think it's called Awareness. And there's a quote in there.
Do you know who wrote it?
His last name's Mello. DeMello. D-E and then next M-E-L-L-O. It's called Awareness. It's real simple, but in it, he's I'll quote him is, we are not interested in a cure. We are interested in relief. A cure would be too painful. Look, I work with a lot of medical professionals. I work with a lot of PhDs too. You know, I don't have the cure. Only you have that. Our medical system was designed as a relief system so that the chaos of what's going on with something could come into relief so that we could fix the problem. But because people became so dependent on this because they didn't want to actually look at that, look at the reality of how they got into this situation by and large. And I'm not discounting the fact that there are people out there with real disorders. And the fact is Western medicine is brilliant, and I would not be here, nor would you, in the capacity that we all get to function without it.
Yeah.
But it's not a health system. So I'm going to say that again. Our medical system is not a health system. It's designed to help people in an emergency to seek relief for the problems they may be seeking. Unfortunately, most of us, by and large, have put the weight of our own reality that we don't actually want the cure. The cure for anything is understanding. The problem is nobody wants to learn what that is.
Yeah.
We don't want to go look in the mirror and look at, well, my gut doesn't function. I don't sleep well. Why is that? Well, maybe how you're handling your shit. And pun intended, your shit. And I was in that boat, man. Like I wasn't going to the bathroom real well. And I just thought it was normal at one point, just because there were so many people I was around that were like that. Today, I can tell you honestly, I am A-okay. Like I'm a very different person. Like it's a very different system, my entire system. And I didn't need to go all paleo because of it. Meaning, and I'm not bringing down paleo. It's a great idea. But if you're so special that you can't eat something, you know, like anybody who's allergic to just about everything, I'm telling you, we've got something a lot bigger going on that's wrong, right? And we're in such a high stress state that we're not looking at the reality of this. And like, so I go back to like, look, a lot of these people that I talk to, PhDs, people in the medical system, like doctors, they got involved for very good reason because they wanted to help people, but unfortunately get caught up in a system that doesn't allow them to actually do that.
Yeah.
It now gives them that they just become a prescription writer to compound the compensation that the public is putting on them, because the public doesn't want to actually do the work to understand. I can't eat Cheerios all day long, right? Like, you know, no, you need to eat.
And that's not even that bad compared to some other things people eat.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, and it's like, look, if you're not sleeping, there's a problem. You need to look at the reality of what that is. And that's looking in the mirror and going down that rabbit hole. And that's why, you know, that this is like, at the end of the day, when people actually get their heads wrapped around the breathing no longer needs to be the thing. You become what that book I gave you the name of, Awareness. Awareness is the entire thing. Yeah. The greatest contribution you have to not only society or nature or whatever it is you believe in, God, call it whatever. The greatest contribution you have is your awareness.
It's very analogous to what's going on in the physical world as well. Blame cops, blame white people, blame black people, blame our ancestors, blame big government, blame big business, blame.
Correct.
You know,
correct.
It's like, let's not sit down collectively and say, what's my role in this? And for some people, they could say it's nothing. I'm a lovely person. Cool. Got it. You're good. But what about, I've got family members tearing each other apart right now. And you can read the comments that they're putting to the world. And it's like, come here, let me hug you. Like, I want to feel your tears on my cheek right now. And I want you to relax. And I'm guilty of it too. Yeah. I'm guilty of it too. But, it's the same thing. It's like, I saw my doc the other day. I get, tested for lead levels because of so much exposure to lead. And my blood pressure was like 117 over like 84, which I don't know. I had like 6 cups of coffee, and the nurse is like, "We better take it again." And I'm like, "Okay." So she takes it again. And anybody that knows about taking blood pressure, you don't take blood pressure on the same arm twice, like in a row, because you'll get a crazy reading, or can. Next one pops off like 118 over like 86. So when the doc comes in, he wants to talk to me about blood pressure medicine. Now, I literally drank like, I have some seasonal allergies that have recently popped up, and like the cottonwoods are going. And I think that kind of like makes my blood pressure spike a little bit. And anyway, that's not really a spike. Yeah, that's like normally my lower number's like 70 on like when I'm just sitting.
Okay.
So even then, that's still nothing. So he wants to talk about blood pressure medicine, and he's like, "I got to be careful. I don't want to put this in your chart." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't want to be careful? You don't want to put it in the chart?" Well, because, you know, it could change your insurance premiums and my life insurance. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I'm not.
Here's a guy who wanted to do well for the world, and this is exactly what I'm talking about.
That's what it made me think of.
Yeah, man.
Like,
it's exactly it, brother.
All my blood work's awesome. He literally uses my charts for blood to show people like what's possible. Like, and that's part of it's genetic, but I've got like awesome cholesterol, awesome markers. I'll never die of heart disease. And now we're concerned about 86 for the lower number on the BP. Like, all right, okay. And that was what we talked about. And then he even sent me a follow-up message, like, we got to keep an eye on that. What? Okay. All right.
Yep.
It's a, I think part of that is he's got to do a job. I was there for a checkup and stuff. So he's got to like find something and maybe noodle around a little bit. I think maybe that's part of it, but that does seem to be kind of the norm. Show up, what's ailing you. Here's what you need to fix it. Eat these, and we'll check on you in 3 months or 6 months.
Yeah, it's putting too much weight on these guys' shoulders, you know? I mean, they're not able to actually do what they're good at. So they're having to do things that they're, you know, like, just like they get, it's like, you know, I ultimately, I believe this is our educational system that's at the forefront of this. You know, and I think it needs to be changed, which is something we're working on from our end. And, you know, intellectualism is a disease, and it has eroded the foundation of everything that we've done in order to educate people. And we've inserted a memorization game, and I'm not suggesting that you don't need to memorize some things, but memorization is not an actual real skill unless you're like in a competition for that, right? When you engage in something that you are passionate about or that you find interest in, you will throw everything into that. And we have completely dismantled that, which is why you've got a lot of really good teachers who actually go into this system and end up getting beaten by that system and completely implode and no longer have any say in how they get to orchestrate education. And some of that's changing, but the fact is our educational, like, I mean, just college in and of itself is a nightmare. You know, it's all about where you went, which is just tied to who's at the top shelf and all of this stuff. And, you know, there's too many in the intellectual sphere who don't have any skin in the game and who have too much say in what's going on. And it's exactly why the medical system is where it's at. It's exactly why any system is really where it's at. It's because we've allowed things like this. I mean, look, education in and of itself has gone up 1,400% in the last 100 years, right? And like, I think something like 30 years ago, you could get a college education, a real good one, for like $7,000. Yet you're putting more people into debt going to college than they're ever going to be in their entire lives. And owed to a system of something that's not guaranteeing them anything, right? So it just becomes, but look, I'm not like, I went a different route. I'm very aware that I can go on this machine here and get books and information that are going to gather me as much education as I need from a degree from just about anywhere. right?
Same.
I've just got to be able to navigate that. And there's plenty of professors out there who actually put their content online. You could actually take their course. I could go to Stanford University right now, well, if it opened back up, and I could crash many of the courses that are going on. I just wouldn't get the degree or the credit for going to the class.
Sure.
What
I've got
do
an
you want?
app I downloaded. I pay like $20 a month for. It's called Great Courses. Have you heard of that? It's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, I got Khan Academy. I've got everything, man.
This is like anything from Harvard level law school. It's literally they're filming in Harvard, and you pay $20 a month for it, and you can watch a whole semester of studies.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I sit walking around with my earbuds in, listening.
And so
to that.
we've got people at the highest levels who are touting this system of play, and then getting people who are at the poorest levels to think that they need to go and get this place or go to this place to actually achieve and get what they want, right? Yeah. And that's that system of just, it's screwing everybody. And anyway,
I got to add something there. I think that, and I talk about this stuff often with people, and it comes down to belief in oneself. Whether or not you want the doctorate degree from an Ivy League school, or you want to do what you and I did and just sort it out the hard way or the easy way, whatever you want to call it, you got to figure out what you want for yourself and then go apply action. Like I don't know how many people I talk to, they're so stressed out. They're stressing themselves out thinking about, my kids are going to be in college in 5 years. I don't have any money for it. Or my kids are in college and it's $4,000 a year just for books or whatever. Yeah. And why are you doing that? Why are you choosing to do that? Like,
I mean, make no mistake. Like there's certain industries, such as a doctor, where you do need professional education into that. And that's not what I'm saying we need to, remove or get rid of. That's not what I'm implying. I'm implying it's the process of getting to where you need to go. It is absolutely abysmal, and it's ruined our entire system of everything. It's why we can't even have conversations anymore. Why everybody leans so hard to one side. If you're not on this side, you're the enemy. Versus, how about we just have a conversation? How about we just listen to each other? Nobody's doing that. You just need to listen to me, and then it's okay. Listen to me, and then we're okay. But I'm not going to listen to you, right? This is where we're at, and so I mean, I hated what's happened with this George Floyd thing and all that, and it's like I'm just so grateful for the fact that I've done the work that I have, and I'm like, hey, I get it. I understand where everybody's coming from. I get it, right? Like, I understand what one side's saying. I understand what the other side's saying. I understand like that. I was very aware of the language I was using with the genocide of the Native American culture, and saying that I realized it wasn't something that we were planning the genocide of the Native American community. It was the outcome of the choices that we made in a process of coming across that frontier based on how gnarly these people were at fighting. And they didn't want us coming on their land. And we didn't understand that we were actually crossing into their land totally. We were just trying to explore, right? And all this stuff happening. Like, it wasn't like it was like this. I'm very, like, I get why we did what we were doing. But I also
some people that wanted to eradicate the indigenous people here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No. That is absolutely for sure. But by and large, it wasn't everybody. There was a lot. I mean, look, the West was already settled to some degree, but it was that frontier and all of those states from the Dakotas down into Texas that was not, and was frightened, right? Like, nobody understood how to cross that son of a bitch. And I get it. Like, but it wasn't until like somebody figured out how to get the Colt revolver into the hands of the Texas Rangers at the time, and then some men that figured out, well, if we just remove the license.
Wait a sec for your dog. I'm just telling you, just pause for a sec, because it was hard to hear you. So if you were about to say something, go ahead.
So and then it was the Colt revolver getting in the hands of Texas Rangers. So now these guys could actually fight off of horseback, because nobody Nobody in any indigenous culture or in civilized culture stood a chance against the Comanche Indian. They were the most hardcore war fighters that we have ever witnessed on this continent. And they were that way because of how they trained. And they lived in a place that was harsh, but they learned how to survive. But they were subservient to the buffalo. That was what they ate. And when we then figured out how to extinct, to just completely annihilate the buffalo, we took away their food and their resources. And it was just a fallout process from there. And that was the end of Native American culture. When the final stand of the Quahati, which was a sect of the Comanche Indian, decided to come in and turn it over.
Tragic stuff.
But why would those people, so my whole thing is, why would those people fight to not go, be given food, be given places to live, a shelter? Why would they fight to not want that? And then you go look at why it was. And they were so in touch with something that they were attached to it, and they understood it because they were so in tune with their own biology. We were not.
As I'm thinking about that, well, I think any humans are adverse to change too. Even that's something I was talking about with some folks this morning. We're always adverse to change, even when the change is better. I'm not suggesting putting indigenous Americans in encampments was good change, but I mean, even right now, what's happening in the United States, I think it's horrible, but it's good. I used the analogy talking this morning: when we dig a garden, we destroy an ecosystem to create food or flowers. And you shove a pickaxe or shovel in the dirt, and you're ripping an ecosystem apart. Little worm tunnels and grubs and all the stuff that lives in there. You're trashing it for your own good, but at the peril of all the organisms that live there, the roots and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
people hate the idea of change.
Yeah, well, that just goes back to that whole thing on pain and the medicals, and just I'm not willing to look at my own bullshit. I just want to. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had.
I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, I can't tell. I mean, the conversations I have with my own family and my parents about things they could be doing in order to get off the need to be on certain. They just don't want to do it because it removes that layer of comfort that doesn't allow them to, feel like
it does something else though too. It puts responsibility on the individual.
Well, this is just how shit.
Yeah, this is just how shit is, dude. You don't get it. You think I want to be on this pill or whatever it is? I don't want this. Don't, stop. That thing. Nobody wants that.
That's what I'm really teaching. That's all I'm really teaching.
Personal responsibility.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Likewise. Be responsible. Like I hated the fact that I needed to put up that I felt compelled to put up a post, about the work that I do inside the state, inside San Quentin.
I saw that, yeah.
For the reasons that I do. I don't want to have to share that with people. I just want to go do the thing that I enjoy doing. And I don't need anything in return for that. I know what my privilege is. I understand my privilege. Whether you agree with that or not means nothing to me. I don't need to understand your opinion of me. I need to do for me what I feel is right, and I want to see the change in the world. I go into a state prison on a weekly basis and donate my time on a program that's doing the exact same thing I'm going to help with you and your program, that I know for a fact I've seen change happening with inside of a community as a result of that. Yeah. I am not blind to the fact that 90% of the population when I walk into that prison is black. I understand that, and I understand that I used my privilege in order to make connections to get my ass into that prison and do something, because and that's the best part of my week, because I got dudes who are so heavily invested in wanting to learn what I'm teaching them because it's already made so many changes for them in a system that they are screwed in, right? But they're learning to deal with that because of the tools that I'm giving, right? And that in turn inevitably infects the people that are attached to them on outside of those walls.
Sure.
So for me, that's all I need. For me to have to share that with people bugs me, because it's like, how many people are just going to put up a picture, a black picture, and then never do a damn thing?
Yeah, it's fruitless. But
you know,
it's a
like,
pill. It's
look,
a pill.
man, if you go look at apartheid, unfortunately, the way apartheid ended is exactly the same way of what is going on right now in this country.
Yeah.
So we might be hitting the critical mass of it.
I personally don't believe in government-sanctioned racism. I think that we just have humans that are used to a way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of whites that are treated in unfair manners by people of color. I had a black gentleman the other day on the phone who's somebody pretty important, and we were chatting. We're going to do a podcast, and he said something. I can't name him, but I said, you got to say that on a podcast. And he goes, I can't. It'll destroy my my career. And it wasn't like he's so fearful of not having work, but he goes, I will completely lose my business. He's in an industry. He's a black man in America. His father and brother are in a similar business. And he basically said, in my opinion, racism is across the board, regardless of skin color. And this was his opinion as a black man. And he goes, I know not everybody has that opinion. Well, I go, you should say that on the podcast. He goes, I can't. He goes, I can't. I'll literally like cut my throat. And we have to just not be scared to, like you said a minute ago, listen to each other and talk.
He's actually telling the truth. It's not even.
He totally is telling the truth.
That's actual scientific proof that a very liberal man has been able to break down, who I've studied, who's arguably the leader on human behavior and science. His name's Dr. Robert Sapolsky. I've seen him lecture. I've watched his YouTube, his classes.
What's his last name?
Sapolsky, Dr. Robert Sapolsky. He's brilliant. And he's highly liberal, so he sits on a very far end of this thing, right? But regardless of that, I don't give a shit that he's liberal. Like, that's his thing. Like, go for it, man. That's you. I get it. Do your thing.
Sure.
But he presented this, they researched people. We're all prejudiced. Anytime a picture of a different race was put up, people were prejudiced. They had a reaction to it, right? Here's the interesting thing, though, and I put this up on the post that I did, is that when presented a team that you stood for, let's just say because I live in the Bay Area, I'm a San Francisco Giants baseball fan, that color no longer mattered.
Interesting.
But if a Dodger posted up in front of me, there was a big reaction. What does that tell you from a scientific perspective? That when I believe we're all on the same team, I then drop the prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where human race kind of comes into this equation. And it's like, we don't realize that we are already biased towards things that we're not around. So the more we're around it, the more we get attuned to it. So it's like, look, I understand I have these prejudices. I know where I grew up. I know where I live. Like, it's like, it's whitewashed. Like, it's very white, predominantly white. And
that's not a problem.
No.
And that's just, people choose to live wherever they want to choose to live.
Exactly. Except, like, there are people who are like, I don't know that I'm doing the right thing because I'm in a very white area. Should I go move? Like, and it's like, what? What are you talking about? Like, no, go get yourself involved in something with culture. It's not hard. There's a prison right there. Like, that's what I did. I knew, and I knew I know where I come from too. I know the people I used to run with. I know the shit that I got involved in. I wound up in jail numerous times. Like, I understand, like, go do something. That's all people have to do, is just get involved in something that gets them immersed in it. Like, I just wanted to learn. My favorite writer is a guy by the name of James Baldwin, who is a black man and he was a civil rights activist. He writes profoundly, but he writes about it. Although he's writing about civil rights, he's writing about the human being. And it's amazing how it's art, the way that he writes. And
What's
so I
his name
picked
again?
James Baldwin. You know, and he's just great. And like prior to that, it was like I didn't even really read a whole lot of Black writers, right? Like, you know, and it's like I didn't know. But so I immersed myself into this culture to understand, because I'm so interested in history.
Yeah.
Because I think there's just so many things we've missed, and we've been painted with one way of history. And it's like, I want to learn. I want to understand.
Yeah.
Right. I don't not want to understand. I am in this place in my life at 45 where I want to learn, and I am limited on time, and there is no guarantee of when that is up.
Right.
You know, and I've had glimpses of that reality several times, and I'm very aware of it, and I'm tired. I don't want to live in a world that, you know, like I am so slanted on my opinion. Like, look, man, I grew up in a very opinionated household, so opinionated that all they did was they put on a channel and went to imright.com and verified it, you know? And I'm like,
Sure.
who, like, and the irony is
my house was the same.
a lot of us grew up in that. Right.
Yeah.
The irony is I live in a place that is so progressive and so opposite of that. They're doing the exact same thing. That is what American politics and the American society is right now.
You're right. That is exactly how it is. Like, it's funny. I've learned to keep my mouth shut around people I don't know, and people they make an assumption, like, so I'm this gun guy, right? And I was the vice chairman of the Republican Party in this area. But people will say things to me, and they assume, like, you know, like some completely right-wing whack job comment. And I'll look at them and I go, like, like, you assume that because I shoot guns. Like, somebody said something to me the other day. A guy called me, and this is a perfect spot to share it. He was like, dude, don't get mad at me. You know, I'm Second Amendment, but I don't own a gun. And I'm like, that's cool, man. I'm pro-gay, and I've never sucked a dick. Like, what does that even mean? Like, how? But like, he just assumed like I'd be upset with him. Like, why would I care? You don't own a gun. Like, how? And but he pigeonholed me. And he's like, dude, I really thought that you'd like bust my stones. Why do I care? I don't care what the hell you do. Like,
exactly.
But people pretty easily jump to conclusions.
That is the world we live in, and everybody's trying to convince everybody of their opinion versus, and they're doing that because nobody's really listening. Nobody wants to learn, and listening and learning are the same thing.
I got to do a better job of listening.
Well, I mean, we all do every day. Every day, I'm sitting there correcting myself, like in shit that I do, whether it's with people like that are my business partners or my girlfriend. Like, my girlfriend's absolutely 100% against guns. And I am like,
yeah, we were talking about that a little bit.
There are 2 guns sitting in the other room. And then her brother saw my mags that were out the other day. And she's like, do you know that Brian there's magazines in his closet? There's no guns in my closet, but there's magazines in there. And she unloaded on me. And I was like, hey, let's talk about that. You know, and she started throwing some, you know.
Is she going to hear this and get mad at you?
No.
Not because she won't get mad at you, or because she'll never hear this?
She'll never hear this, but no, she won't get mad at me.
I'm going to text it to her.
Perfectly fine. She came out at me and was hot about the whole thing. And I was like, hey, look, I got no problem putting my mags away if you feel more comfortable if they're away. Okay? But let's have a conversation about guns. And she's like, she just started rambling off some things that were untrue facts, right? They were just like riddled out. And I was like, hey, first off, hold on. You can't just start throwing things out that aren't true.
Right.
Okay? Like, let's just have a conversation about this. And it got hot. And she got hotter and hotter and hotter and like had to leave. And I was engaging her in that. No, I was pushing some buttons because she threw some very untrue things out. But when she came back, I called her and I was like, look, come back. It's perfectly fine that we don't agree about this. I'm totally cool with that. And I'm totally cool with making you feel safe around my guns. What would really help me out, though, is that if you actually wanted to come with me and I could teach you about how they work, or you could even come to a course with me and learn so that you understood more about the education. No, I'd never do that. And I said, okay, but just so we're clear, you're not educating yourself on weapons, on the gun then. And that really kind of spun her out. And I was like, look, I'm totally fine if you don't want to touch guns. You don't have to touch them. And I'm totally fine with where I put them so that you feel safe around them. You know, then all this shit went down. And she's like, hey, I think I should probably come and stay up at your house. And I'm like, isn't that weird?
Yes, I've got a lot of phone calls. That was that call from my friend calling me about that. Like, I don't own any. I've got kids. Everything happening now. People's viewpoint starts changing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When it first happened, she was like, how do you feel about guns now? And I'm like, exactly the same way that I felt about them in the first place. There's a lot of people who have great training who may need that training.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's one of those tough ones that people get a visceral response about. I've learned to just kind of.
Yeah. I mean, you're so close to this that it's like, yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. And people have a right to be scared of things they don't understand.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do. We either worship or we fear them.
Yeah.
Horses we don't understand.
Can be great fun. I've got a friend lives down the street. She's got no spleen. She grew up with horses. Her horse kicked her when she wasn't looking, and somebody found her out in the field almost dead. You know, like you have to have respect for anything that you fell off a playground and broke your neck.
That's right. Jungle gyms, bro.
What were you doing?
Here we go.
What were you doing? I sound like your mother. What exactly were you doing, Brian?
I was playing tag with my nephews, and I ran up a ladder to get away from one of them. That at the top of the 8-foot ladder, there was a gap for a kid to fit in, but at the top of that gap, which was like 4 feet, was a bar. And I went to go stand on that bar to go across the bridge. And I went directly head first into it, and it compressed my spine because I didn't see it.
That's all it was you climbed up real fast and just smacked.
I was going as fast as I could, stepped on it, and like went to go jump and went think. And I just remember just like stars. And then I woke up and I was like on the ground and I couldn't move. And so I completely pinched contusion of my spinal cord at C3-4 and concussion. So I went lights out, and then I had to learn to rewalk for the next, couple, month plus. I was like Bambi for like 3 weeks.
That's horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little scary.
Fine line we walked, just going from having fun to almost dead.
Yeah, man. But it's like, I got to put something into practice instantaneously. And because of the amount of work that I've done and the people that I've done work with to understand things like trauma, especially with the communities that we work with, it's incredibly important to understand how trauma works. And I wanted to understand that. And so I got involved in that to understand it. And it was like, I knew instantaneously when I thought my neck was broken, that I had a choice in how I reacted right then and there that was going to compound the rest of my life. And I instantly just gathered how I controlled my breathing and thought about this new game that I was going to get to play. And that not feeling sorry for myself about this game was not going to get me anywhere. And, I ended up back on a playground pretty quickly thereafter.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this for a minute. So we've covered a bunch of different territory, kind of people that haven't been exposed to you, got an idea what your work is. Spend a couple minutes talking about whether it's looking out your window, seeing your city getting ripped up, reading shit on Facebook and getting spun out, having an argument with a loved one or a coworker. How can somebody channel their breath and their mental power and their awareness of self to to change something in the moment? And then how can that get extrapolated out into day by day?
The most basic thing about breath work is just understanding the difference between nasal breathing and mouth breathing, and learning that. For most people, we suggest just shut your mouth for the next 4 weeks in everything that you do other than talking and eating. Just shut it. Even sleeping. Get some mouth tape you can get off of Amazon, and you can put it on your lips at night and sleep with your mouth taped.
Mm-hmm.
Do that for 4 weeks. Then the simple thing is that in any sort of heightened situation that you want to respond better to or learn to respond to, zip your lips if you can and just calm your breathing down as much as you can.
So what's a trick? This is something that took me into my late 20s to start to become aware of. So we start to get angry, or somebody cuts you off and now you're freaking spun out. Whatever the stimulus is, what is a trick for somebody to? It's hard for people to step outside of themselves in these moments, right? You're getting spun out, and instead of saying, "Hey, baby, let's talk about these guns like later," or "Let's start this over again, I'll let you go." Instead, it's like, blah, 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 blah. And then later you look back and go, man, I wish I would have taken a second and relaxed. What is a way that we can step back out of ourselves maybe and catch ourselves before we get spun out to the point that our habit, how do we create a new habit? Maybe that's
you create a habit by just breathing through that nose as somebody's unloading, regardless of what they're unloading on. Okay? Human behavior is very simple. It's not this complex thing, even though there's the science around it can be incredibly complex. Everybody, including yourself, is showing you everything that you need in order to understand what's going on, regardless of the words that are coming out of somebody's mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that somebody engages with you in some sort of heated way, the sooner you get to calm, the more you get to see the entire picture. And so just divert into breathing and slowing down your breathing. And the more you can control your exhale, the better. So it's just because the exhale is actually very passive. It's not something you engage in when you're unconscious. So to control it means we're instantly setting ourselves into more of this parasympathetic tone. All right. Which is
do or don't control the exhale.
Do control the exhale. So if you actively engage in breathing, it's extending that exhale becomes critical. Not to the point where you're stressing yourself out, to where you can keep yourself calm. Breathe and watch people and listen to them. Their emotions are going to tell you.
I've always done that, like at the grocery store. I'll just watch people. I've done that for years.
That's
it's just a weird thing.
That's what I do when I travel.
Watch the chest go.
The airports. Oh, it's.
Yeah, and you're like, that guy's.
Yeah. That guy's dying.
You guys listening, we're just making jokes too.
Just totally making jokes. We are, but I've seen it all. Well, no, we never see it all. But
No.
Behavior is very simple, and the ability to see what you see in other people is your own behavior too. Like that's what you get to work on with yourself. But it's like I get to see what people are communicating. If somebody's getting highly emotional or angry, like look, there are 4 primary emotions. It's sad, angry, fear, which is a derivative of threat, right? And happy, right? So sad, angry, fear, happy. Those primary emotions, I say those are primary because those are evolutionary. That means all animals experience them other than like reptiles, okay? And insects. It means horses, dogs, cats, they all experience happy, anger, fear, sad. These are survival mechanisms that are at play. So when somebody's overly emotional and crying and sad, this is a survival mechanism. They're anger. I'm feeling threatened in some regard because, you know, fear is some threat, right? Or, you know, like my death is imminent. Like I might get killed if I go into the water and get eaten by a shark, right? Like these are all derivatives of survival. And so if you can pay attention to that, you can then understand that somebody's actually threatened, or they're feeling love, or they're feeling sad toward, and just go, okay, I get the underlying emotion of this versus the blah, 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 blah that's coming out that I may disagree with, right? You're instantly engaging in empathy. The greatest generals and war fighters of our time have to understand empathy in order to understand what the enemy may be doing next. Okay? And I use that because that's the extreme end of where you need to understand empathy. From a basic end, it allows you to engage with somebody and understand where they're coming from so that you can then not have to attach your opinion into their own experience of something, right? So if I just breathe, I calm myself down and just engage and to understand their behavior and where I can see them. And if I have to, in some way, if I feel threatened to engage my opinion, I know I've lost that emotional control. And so I've just moved into survival mode. Why am I in survival mode if I am not in a survival-like situation? There may be a time and a place we all end up in a survival-type situation, especially with your crowd. But how good am I at understanding the emotion of somebody in that context of engagement to make the appropriate decision when I blow the whistle? This is training. This is grossly understanding human behavior and catching these things. And there's so much out there we could go to understand all this stuff, but it's like those are just the basics of going, if I just control my breathing, I settle myself down, bring myself into more parasympathetic state. I cannot change your mind. That's not what I'm talking about. But it just so happens that I am changing, if we go into nasal breathing, how you serve your memory and how you actually get to engage in the plasticity of your brain right then and there. This is science right now. Okay? I can actively engage in how I'm absorbing that situation to not, like, why do I need to, if I'm in an argument with my wife, why am I engaged? What is so important about me being right in this situation?
Yeah.
Right? Do I love this person or not? She's heated about something. And it's just because I didn't clean up my shit on the ground. Is that what it really is?
What a stupid thing to argue about.
Well, but it's like, could there be more to what she's actually getting at? Like, there's something else other than the clothes, right?
You don't care about me enough. You don't truly care about how I feel, Brian.
So if I just calm it down, can I see it for what it actually is and go, you know what? Maybe if I just pick my shit up. My girlfriend's thing is brushing my teeth first thing in the morning, right?
She wants you to or doesn't want you to?
Wants me to. I brush my teeth at night before I go to bed, and then I do it after I've trained or drank my coffee in the morning, right? But she has this thing with it. And like, I was like, why do I give a about this so much?
Control.
Yeah.
Not to have your life dictated to you by a woman.
Right. And so I just simply said to her, hey, I'll get to that as soon as I'm done with my training or my coffee. And
now, is it because you have like ass breath and you try to kiss her? Because that's another animal altogether.
Yes.
Well, just put a little scope in your mouth.
All right. Well, so I've worked on that from her end. She's not going to make out with me in the morning until I've brushed my teeth.
Cool.
But it's just a simple thing of like, hey, what am I listening to? What are we getting at here? Why am I feeling threatened by you asking me to pick up my shit?
Growth through awareness.
Yeah. And so breathing instantly allows me, controlling my breathing, slowing it down, puts me more calm in order to actually see the reality of what's going on. So I'm present. So I'm aware. That's all. That's everything right there.
I dig it. I dig it. You guys listening, I hope that you took something away from this. If you are not already following, pardon me, Brian, on social media, please do so. Your Instagram handle at
_ Brian, Brian MacKenzie, MacKenzie.
And then your website.
Powerspeedendurance.com. And if anybody's interested, we have a code, HigherlinePSE.
Ooh.
If you sign up for PSE Pro, you will get all of the training that we offer, including the breathwork stuff. There's special stuff. There's stuff dedicated specifically to breathwork. So it's a free month to go and explore this and see what it can do for you.
What does it cost?
$30. I think it'll be $30 a month coming in August, because we're actually about to rebrand. I shouldn't even be saying that, but we are probably.
Do you want us to
what's
cut
the date
that?
today? No, it's fine. But this all goes over to that. So where we're going to be inserting our more of our education and webinars behind that subscription as well. So they'll, more than likely start to see that stuff as well.
So go to powerspeedendurance.com, use the code HigherlinePSE.
Correct.
Case sensitive or anything like that?
No, don't worry about it. No. And it is just PSE Pro is the subscription. So just click on that and sign up, and they'll get a free month.
PSE Pro. Cool. I like it. You guys listening, if this stuff is meaningful to you, these conversations, this is Brian and I's work in our life. So we could have had the same conversation sans the camera and recording, and this is what we would have talked about. If you found it meaningful, pass it on. Share it on your Facebook page or on your Instagram account, or share it, wherever. Send a link to your friends or loved ones. If we talk about change and growth, that requires you to make conscious choices and action. If you're not, you are just a piece of driftwood, and I don't really like to hang out with driftwood unless I'm burning it or carving it into some cool hippie-like object. Is that a huge weed plant behind you, by the way?
Why? Because I'm in Northern California?
I don't know. It looks like it's kind of shady, so I can't really see it. It looks like a huge weed plant.
No,
but if it was, I wouldn't tell you. I bet you guys that's a huge weed plant.
No, I used to grow weed, but it's just too much. There's too much weed aftermath, and I don't want to sell weed. So
too much weed aftermath.
You guys, so much weed.
Up there. Oh, you did.
No, like you grow one plant, and it's just like there's too much. Like I don't smoke weed like that. So
I gotcha. You guys, if you're going to come to S12, you can come hang out in November, get some FaceTime with this guy. Watch him breathe. It'll be badass. Nice. Mickey with CarryTrainer.com. Brian MacKenzie with Power Speed Endurance.
Correct.
Yeah. Be well. Don't be dickheads. Tell somebody you love them. Go hug your neighbor and be nice. Peace out.
Peace.
Visit our website, CarryTrainer.com, for information about classes held throughout the U.S., CarryTrainer apparel, and upcoming projects. You can also email us at training@CarryTrainer.com for information about setting up your own private course or speaking engagement. Training@CarryTrainer.com or CarryTrainer.com.